All right, what's up, guys? Alex from Marker's Delight, and it's an early morning here in the MD Labs, and I decided to create a new video talking about the code snippets library on the MD website. So this is a fast-growing section on the website. A lot of you guys are starting to come here to grab pretty cool little code snippets that you can add into your child theme to enable quick and cool new little bits of functionality. So in the code snippets library, you'll generally get I guess we can kind of boil it down to three types of code snippets. One, you'll get some short codes. So, for example, the border box short code, you add a couple snippets to your child theme, and you'll be able to easily output boxes that look like this in your posts, and that's just with the little short code. So that's pretty much the first kind of code you'll get from here. The second is, kind of like filters, hooks, how you are quickly just modifying different elements. So if you wanted to adjust how the position of the byline before or after your headline, you'll have access to hooks and general filters around WordPress and around MD. And I guess we can say the third general kind of content that you'll get out of the code snippets library are little content blocks that you can add to your site. So for example, if you wanted to add a floating bar to the bottom of your screen, we have that announcement box next to it as well. So this little video, you would load this whole floating bar right from your child theme. So these code snippets kind of boil down into hooks, short codes, and these custom content blocks. So, and of course there are other kinds of things like if you want to integrate other plugins such as the Yoast breadcrumbs or the WooCommerce, but in general you're gonna get those three types of content out of the code snippets library. And the thing about these different types of content is they all are a little bit different, and generally this code snippets library, the instructions I have on here are to simply paste what you get into your functions.php file or your style CSS file. And because we're loading these different kinds of content, it's a very simplistic way to go about it by just pasting it all inside of a single file. I wanted to make this video to kind of give you to show you a basic way you can organize these different kinds of code snippets in your child theme, because I'm starting to realize that this library of code snippets is growing pretty fast. And for me to just tell you to throw all this code inside of a single file, it's going to ultimately contribute to you guys creating some pretty messy child themes. I mean, if we're just throwing all these different kinds of short codes and content blocks inside of a single functions file, things are just going to get messy, and our child theme is going to be harder to maintain later down the road. So the whole code snippets concept is really cool because you can simply just paste in a bit of code, and it can really change a lot around your site. I mean, if you use any of the MD drop-ins, you'll definitely understand that. And I always say that HTML, PHP, CSS, all that stuff is those are the languages that your website really speaks. And if you really want to get your website to look the way you want it to, having at least like an open mind to messing around with code is going to get you very, very far. So that's kind of my whole driving force behind this code snippets library. And I don't want you guys to create messy child themes, because it's just not going to end well. So I want to show you just a few different ways that I organize my own child themes, whether it's in custom websites that I'm building, the more advanced ones, my own sites, or just quick, simple sites. I want to give you a few organizational tips that you can use to organize all these different kinds of code snippets into your child theme without creating a messy environment for yourself. All right, so let's get right into it. Let's start by looking at how we might organize shortcodes. So there's a couple of cool shortcodes in here. I showed you the border box. What else do we got? We got the embeddable post excerpts. We have note boxes, and I think that's what we have so far for shortcodes. So there's three different shortcodes right now in this library, and you could go ahead and just simply throw them in your functions file, or we can do something a little bit different. So I'm opening up my FTP here. I'm connected to my site, so let's go to WP content. We're going to go into our themes folder, and then I've already installed. I have Markers Delight running on my test site as well as my child theme. I haven't renamed it, so I'll just keep it like that. And then we have just the two files that it comes with, and the two famous files that we've been talking about here. So we have our functions PHP file. This is just the stock child theme file that comes with the MD child theme that you download. So what you could normally do is you can go in, you can grab this border box CTA code, and then here's the PHP that you would grab. So normally, I mean, if you just wanted to do it quick, you could just go your functions file and then go to the bottom, paste it in there just like that, and then you call it a day. But we're going to be a little bit more organized with this. So instead of just throwing everything in our functions file, I try to just keep this to just pretty small and generic functions. So like out of the box, you'll have just the function that loads the MD style sheets, and then just a couple of other little MD filters. So they're pretty general and they're pretty small. So that's usually my criteria for throwing something in a functions file. But for something big like a short code, it has template code in it, so it has like HTML. It outputs like page titles, things like that. It can get to be a pretty big code, and you throw a few short codes inside of a functions file, and it's just a lot of code. So maybe a better way to organize it is, hey, I know that I'm going to be creating a few different shortcodes. There's 3 shortcodes in the snippets library right now, so maybe I should just organize all my shortcode functions into a single file. So let's do that. We'll go into FTP and we'll create a new file, and then we can just simply call it shortcodes.php. So you definitely want it to be a PHP file. You can open that up, and it's going to be blank. And then at the top of all these files with PHP, you just want to have this opening PHP tag. And then we still have that snippet copied. And now, so this is the MD border box shortcode, and then we'll paste it in there just like that. So we created the file, but just because we have we've created a file inside of our child theme, it doesn't mean that the file is loading on our site yet. We have to call that and load it ourselves. So that's when we'll go back to the functions file, and then usually up here when I'm loading custom files, generally I'll load them from my functions.php file. So there's a few, it all depends on your organizational system, but for the most part, I like to keep my functions file. Like I said, it's kind of like that home base, that main functionality file in my child theme, because by WordPress standards, it kind of is anyways. So we want to include this shortcodes file into our theme because it's not running yet. So we can't use that shortcode until we do that. So if we want to load these custom PHP files that we make in our child theme, we can kind of base it off of this require once, and that loads the markers delight library. So this little bit of code that comes default in your child theme, it's pulling a file from the main MD theme to load. So we can kind of follow the same syntax here. So we'll do include once, just because it's not really that important of a file. And then your child theme will also come with these constants. That's what these are called. And this just quickly gets you a path to your child theme so you can load files very quickly. So we have to find the file path to this shortcode. And the easiest way to do that is to take this constant, paste it in here like that. And then we need to add our own text string to it. Just like that. So with this simple include statement, we have the whole, we're looking inside of our child theme directory. That's pretty much what this means. And then inside that child theme directory, we have the shortcodes.php file. So we'll save it, and then we can go now to our test site, and we can use the border box. So make sure that I didn't break anything, refresh, and it's just fine. So that's just the border box, and then of course we need to get the CSS next. So let's go grab this. Gotta make this easier to copy, huh? And then, all right, so CSS is a little bit different. Anytime you have styles like this, that's when you would want to go into your style.css file. So now the CSS kind of works a little bit differently than a functions file, and I would definitely recommend that you do paste all your CSS into one file, just because you don't want your site to load a whole bunch of style sheets. By default, you're going to be loading the markers delight style sheet and now your MD child theme. So let's keep all of our CSS in one file instead. So now that we have added our style and we've added our shortcode into our functions file, let's just see that it works. So I'm just going to grab the shortcode, and then we'll just go into the latest post up here. We'll edit the post, and let's just throw it anywhere here. So I'm just copying it straight from the site. All right, we'll preview just to make sure that it all worked, you know. And then it's there, so I might need to refresh the cache. All right, there. So I just needed to refresh, and then so the border box is there just like that. So as you can see, our organization system worked, and it's a little bit nicer. So now that anytime I want to add a shortcode from the Snippets library into my child theme, I have this nice file that I can just simply paste all those shortcodes in. So in the future, if I need to change something about a shortcode, or if I need to delete one or anything like that, I know exactly where to go, and it's a little bit cleaner in my theme now. So let's even go back to our style file. Let me show you something here. So I'm starting pretty much from a fresh child theme, so I don't really have any CSS in here. I already installed the hover boxes code snippet, and I just put that border box down here as well. So you can see that all these different sections they have these little comments on them. So we have the links comment, the hover boxes, and then the border box. So that little comment, it's kind of like a quick way to separate these different blocks, but it's kind of small, so it's not that easily scannable. And then once this file is really long, you're gonna want an easy way to just scroll down and just kind of get like a kind of like a table of contents type of view of all the different sections in your CSS in your CSS file. So I try to look at style sheets kind of in terms of sections and hierarchy. So you can have a section of content. So say you have you make a section where that's going to hold all of your sidebar CSS, and then under that section that's where you will have, all right, so I'm going to change the link colors on my sidebar. That might be like a kind of subsection within the sidebar section, and then you'll have the hover boxes widget. So within that sidebar section, you'll have, you know, the main sidebar, and then you'll do a subsection for your links, something like that, and another subsection with these comment titles for your hover boxes. So I'll show you what that means. And here's how I like to do it. So I like to do a lot of space in between different sections, and then write out this pretty big content block here, just like this. It's kind of annoying to make it first, but it really helps a lot, because these sections will be super scannable. So I put just the main section here, and again, there's a big gap of space in between each section, just so when I'm scanning the file, it's pretty easy to see. So here's in my sidebar, we have the hover boxes subsection. Now maybe I'll do like sidebar links, as I said, something like that, and then I could put my CSS for that in there, and then we have our hover boxes as well. So maybe I just want to grab this again for the next section. Border box, put a whole bunch of space there, and then we have a comment block like that. Maybe this could just be, you know, shortcodes. You can organize your CSS pretty much any way that you want, whatever is just easy for you to understand and find later. You know, you don't have to go over the top with this, but taking a couple seconds just to kind of split up your CSS code like that into different sections can really help a lot, because as you can see, this file is already looking pretty scannable. I mean, here's my sidebar, I'm going to go down, find my shortcodes. So repeat this pretty basic concept, and I guarantee that your style sheet will be very, or at least much easier to work with than as opposed to just throwing everything into it. All right, so far we've covered adding styles into our style CSS file, and then we now know how to create different files to load our different content, such as, you know, organize our shortcodes all inside of a single file. So we'll go back to functions.php. So when exactly would we want to use this functions file? I usually, like I said earlier, I just try to keep these generic kinds of functions in there. I don't want to see like HTML blocks, you know, kind of long blocks of code inside this file, unless it's just kind of really a generic type of function. So you can see that there's a couple of MD filters in here by default, and there's more filters available here. So say I wanted to add more footer columns to my site. This is a pretty small function that you would get. You just copy that, and then this is something that I would absolutely include in my functions PHP file, just because it's such a little thing, it's such a generic thing, and it really affects the whole site, because the footer's on every site, or on every page if I want it to be. So that's kind of like an example of a general filter that I would put inside my child theme. Even there's this, if you wanted to add a custom post type into the sidebars manager, there's that little filter too. So pretty much these general, like all-purpose kinds of functions, I like to put inside that functions file. So that's just a quick aside on that. Now the next thing we want to talk about here is loading these different content blocks. So when I talk about these content blocks, I mean things like we have the floating previous and next post nav links. These little things right here as you scroll down the page, and you can see from this code snippet that there's a bunch of HTML and template tags in there. So this is not something that I would really want to put in my functions.php file, just because it can get pretty messy. This is more template related stuff. So I want to kind of create a little organizational system for that. So that's an example of the floating nav. Let's just use the announcement boxes because it's a little simpler. So for this example, I want to show you how I would go about adding different template content blocks around my child theme. So here's a pretty small one. We'll just go ahead and grab this code. And I like to execute this kind of stuff from something I call the loader file. So we just covered how to create new files and things like that in our child theme. So we're going to create another file for these types of template codes. I like to call it loader.php, and what you can do in this file is pretty cool. So actually first we could create a loader file, and now we want to also include it. So I already wrote this out here. It's following the same exact syntax as your shortcodes file. We create the file in our child theme, now we need to load it to our site. So we put the include statement in here, make sure it's named the same, and then inside this loader file have your opening PHP tag, and again you can simply go ahead and paste in your function here. Let me just grab this quick little bit of CSS. So we're back to our style.css file. Maybe I'll go up here and I'll change this section from sidebar to code snippets. So now all the code snippets that I get from MD, I'll just put them under here. The CSS purist might laugh at an organizational system like that, but hey, a lot of you guys aren't really trying to become pros. You just want to have a basic organizational system. That's a good way to do it. So, all right, so we have our alert box style, and then we have the alert box template tag loading to the top of our site with this add action. So when you see add action, that means a function is firing and it's adding something to your site. So with that stuff saved, we'll go check out our demo site, refresh, and we'll see that we have that yellow announcement box at the top of our page. So that's pretty cool. And this is where we have all of our template code. So we could do that floating bar or those different kinds of floating bars as well in here. So we can take this a step further. In the loader PHP file, you might see in a few different code snippets that I talk about the template redirect function. And what that allows you to do is, instead of loading a hook just everywhere uncontrolled, you can actually load it from template redirect. So you create a function, and I like to just kind of create one template redirect if I can, and then just do a whole bunch of different conditional logic in it. So if I only wanted to load this alert bar on the blog home and nowhere else, I could go into my template redirect function, and I could use WordPress Conditionals, and to target the blog homepage, I just use this if is home, and then put these brackets, put the hook inside my if statement, and I can refresh it. I do other videos on this a little more in depth than what I'm going right now, and then we'll see. We'll refresh the page. I'm on my blog homepage right now. We can see that the announcement bar is up there, and then I go into a single post, and it's still there because I did not remove this other hook. So I'm loading it from the template redirect, and I forgot to delete it from this kind of the global scope. So let me delete that real quick, and now we'll refresh it, and it's not on our single blog posts, but it is on our blog homepage. So you wouldn't be able to use the conditional logic if you had the hook out here. That's why we go into template redirect. And so, like I said, I like to use template redirect kind of just this one file kind of as like that central base. So if I wanted to do other things to different pages, I would do, use if is single to target my individual blog posts, and I would just type in my hooks and filters here. So this loader file is probably my favorite file out of all this because you can do so much with it. And then this is really where I would go ahead to store these custom HTML blocks, things like that, and control where I load them with template redirect. So I'm pretty sure that I did do another video that goes into more depth about what you can do with template redirect. I just kind of wanted to blaze through it here really quick. So I recommend you go watch that. It's somewhere in the MDTV library. And with that, that is the loader PHP concept. So those are really the three things that I wanted to show you. I showed you how to organize your style sheet a little bit with comments, with sections. We talked about hierarchy as well. And then I taught you how to create a new file inside your child theme and then how to load it inside your child theme. And you might want to create different files to organize different kinds of content, such as your shortcodes. You might just paste all your functions inside, all your shortcode functions inside one file. And then I showed you the loader file where you can load your different kinds of content blocks, and you can control where you load them by placing your hooks inside a template redirect. So those are pretty much the three basic ways that you can organize your child theme when you're adding in code snippets into the theme itself. So like I said, the code snippets library is only growing. There's going to be way more code snippets as time goes on. And if you use these pretty simple techniques to organize your child theme, then you're going to just have a much happier site in the future. So that's all I wanted to show you. I hope you learned a couple of different things from this video. If you like these videos, leave a comment, let me know, or reply to your email. Just get your feedback back to me. And if there's anything you want to see covered on MDTV, just let me know. So always be sure to check out the MD site, from the blog to MDTV to drop-ins, or even to these code snippets. There's always something going on in the works. So thank you again for watching. Again, I'm Alex, and I'll see you in the next video.